June 1943. The skies over Europe were a battleground. Allied bombers flew deep into German territory, hoping to cripple the Reich's industrial heart. But they faced a deadly problem. German fighters like the Focke-Wulf 190 and the Messerschmitt Bf 109 roamed the skies with speed, agility, and experience. The bomber crews, no matter how brave, were extremely vulnerable. American escort fighters, including the P-38 Lightning and P-47 Thunderbolt, tried to protect them. Yet these planes had limits. The P-47 was heavily armored and powerful, but it ran out of fuel long before reaching targets deep in Germany. The P-38 could go further, but it was tricky to handle and often had mechanical problems. Day after day, Allied bombers suffered losses. The air war was in crisis. Then came the P-51 Mustang. The P-51 was a marvel of engineering. It combined speed, range, and agility in a way no other fighter of the era could. But when the first Mustangs reached the European theater in mid-1943, no one could have predicted how rapidly it would reshape the war in the air. German pilots, accustomed to dominating the skies, were about to face a shock. The story begins across the Atlantic in the factories of North American Aviation in Inglewood, California. In April 1940, the British Purchasing Commission approached North American with an urgent request. They needed a modern, high-speed fighter to defend against the Luftwaffe. North American's engineers quickly drew up a prototype. The first prototype, the NA-73X, flew on October 26, 1940. It was fast, extremely fast. It had sleek lines, a laminar flow wing, and excellent aerodynamics. Initially, it was fitted with the Allison V1710 engine. This engine was reliable, but lacked high-altitude power. That limited the plane's potential. It could outperform many German fighters at low and medium altitudes, but the Luftwaffe's Bf-109s still held the advantage higher up. American engineers knew the plane had potential. The breakthrough came when they fitted it with the British Rolls-Royce Merlin engine. This gave the P-51 Mustang the high-altitude performance it needed. The aircraft could now escort bombers deep into Germany without refueling. For the first time, Allied bombers would have continuous protection from takeoff to target and back. By late 1943, P-51 Mustangs began flying combat missions over Italy and then over France. Early reports from pilots were glowing. The Mustang could dive, turn, and climb faster than almost any German fighter. Its long range allowed escorts to follow bombers all the way to Berlin. German pilots noticed the difference immediately. Oberleutnant Heinrich Baer, a famed Luftwaffe ace, later recalled, "At first, we thought it was just another P-47 or P-38, but then it attacked with a precision we had never seen. Fast, unpredictable. It changed everything." The Mustang's reputation grew quickly. Its .50 caliber Browning machine guns were deadly, and it could carry bombs and rockets when needed. Pilots described it as almost unfair. German airmen began calling it the Rote Teufel, the Red Devil, after some early Mustangs were painted with red noses. One of the first major operations that showcased the Mustang's impact took place on December 17, 1943. 8th Air Force bombers targeted Bremen, a key German industrial city. P-51s escorted the B-17 Flying Fortresses all the way from England to the target. German pilots scrambled to intercept. Dozens of Bf-109s attacked, expecting the usual escort planes. But the Mustangs were faster and more maneuverable. They engaged the Luftwaffe head-on. Allied bombers reported significantly fewer losses that day than in previous deep raids. By early 1944, the effect was undeniable. The Luftwaffe could no longer freely attack American bombers. German losses soared. Experienced pilots were shot down faster than they could be replaced. Morale among German air units dropped sharply. The Mustang's combination of range, speed, and firepower created what historians call air superiority over Europe. For the first time, the Allies could dominate the skies on a strategic scale. German fighter pilots were stunned. Experienced aces, some with hundreds of kills, suddenly found themselves outmatched. Lieutenant Walter Nowotny, one of Germany's top aces, described his first encounter. "We engaged a squadron of Mustangs over Berlin. They were everywhere, faster than expected. Our tactics failed. I had to retreat. It was like facing a ghost in the sky." This shock wasn't limited to pilots. Ground crews, too, were surprised. German radar operators reported American fighters appearing far earlier than expected. Luftwaffe strategists scrambled to adjust. Entire doctrines of air defense had to change because a single plane, the P-51, had altered the dynamics of combat. Even prisoners of war recounted their awe. Some German pilots captured after encounters with Mustangs described the Americans as having superior technology, training, and tactics. They were bewildered by the Mustang's speed and endurance. Unlike previous American fighters, the Mustang could follow a dogfight, retreat, or attack without running out of fuel. The P-51 was not just about technology. American pilots learned to exploit it in innovative ways. One key tactic was fighter sweep. Mustang squadrons would fly ahead of bomber formations, seeking out Luftwaffe fighters. By engaging them early, they cleared the skies for the bombers. The Mustang's performance also allowed for boom and zoom attacks. Pilots would dive from high altitude, fire, then climb back out of reach. German fighters, used to slower, lower altitude dogfights, struggled to adapt. Captain Charles "Chuck" Yeager, later famous for breaking the sound barrier, flew P-51s over Europe. He remembered, "The Mustang gave us confidence. For the first time, we felt the sky belonged to us, not the Germans." American squadrons began pairing Mustangs with B-17 and B-24s on every deep mission. Losses dropped dramatically. German fighter tactics had to shift from aggressive interception to cautious defense. German POWs in Allied camps were quick to talk about the Mustang. One Luftwaffe pilot interned in England wrote, "The Americans have a fighter that is fast, lethal, and tireless. It is not like anything we have. We called it the terror of the sky." Even civilians in occupied Europe noticed. Witnesses in the Netherlands reported seeing Mustangs dive through the clouds, chasing Bf-10-9s. They described the sound as sharper, more menacing than any plane they had seen before. The Mustang became a symbol of American ingenuity. For many Germans, it was proof that the Allies could produce machines that outclassed anything the Luftwaffe had. The psychological effect was as important as the tactical one. By mid-1944, the statistics were staggering. Before Mustangs arrived, American bomber losses on raids deep into Germany averaged around 20% per mission. With P-51 escort, losses dropped to under 5%. The Luftwaffe could not replace pilots fast enough. Germany was already stretched thin. Training programs shortened, leaving new pilots inexperienced. Mustangs systematically hunted these replacements, further tipping the balance. By the time of Operation Overlord in June 1944, the Allies had clear air superiority. The P-51 had ensured that the Luftwaffe could no longer contest large-scale bombing raids over Germany. Several factors made the P-51 revolutionary. Range. It could escort bombers to Berlin and back without refueling. Speed. Faster than most German fighters at multiple altitudes. Maneuverability. Agile in dogfights, yet stable for bombing support. Firepower. 6.50 caliber machine guns with deadly accuracy. Psychological impact. German pilots feared it. Morale dropped. The Mustang wasn't just a new plane. It changed the entire air war in Europe. German strategies failed. Bomber losses fell. Allied confidence soared. By the end of 1944, the P-51 had become the backbone of the Allied air effort over Europe. The P-51 Mustang represents a unique combination of technology, strategy, and timing. It arrived at a moment when the Allies desperately needed an edge in the air. Its impact was immediate, and its reputation legendary. For German pilots, it was terrifying. For Allied crews, it was a guardian in the skies. And for history, it became an example of how one well-designed aircraft can change the course of a war. By 1944, the P-51 Mustang was no longer a rumor in German airfields. Its reputation had spread through the Luftwaffe like wildfire. Experienced aces and fresh recruits alike faced a single, terrifying truth. The Americans had a fighter that could dominate the skies on almost every metric. For German pilots captured after air battles, descriptions of the Mustang were vivid. They spoke of speed, endurance, and deadly precision. For some, the Mustang represented a technological shock. For others, it was a psychological weapon. These first-hand accounts help us understand just how much the Mustang changed the air war overnight. In late 1944, the Allies captured dozens of Luftwaffe pilots who had fought against the Mustangs. Interviews conducted at interrogation centers in England and France reveal a common theme: surprise and disbelief. Lieutenant Klaus Hartmann, a 23-year-old pilot from the JG-26 fighter wing, was captured near Aachen in September 1944. He had engaged a squadron of P-51s during a raid over the Ruhr. His report was striking. We knew the Americans had planes, but this was different. They came out of nowhere, faster than anything we could see. Our formations scattered. We could not keep up. We had no answer. Another pilot, Oberfeldwebel Dieter Braun, recounted a similar encounter over Berlin. I had just been cleared for a dogfight. I lined up on a Mustang. I fired. They fired. It was over in seconds. My wingman was gone. I had to break off and climb for altitude. These planes could dive, turn, climb, and escape faster than anything we had trained against. These reflections illustrate a key factor. The Mustang was not only a superior machine, but it also disrupted the German approach to aerial combat. The tactics that had worked for years were suddenly obsolete. German POWs frequently mentioned the psychological effect of the Mustang. It wasn't just speed or firepower. It was the aura of invincibility that came with it. Luftwaffe instructor Major Heinrich Schulz commented after being captured, "Before the Mustang, we believed we could contest the skies. After our first encounter, that confidence was gone. Even young, inexperienced pilots knew that one wrong move meant death. It was terrifying. Psychologists later noted that this phenomenon had broader implications. Pilots who faced the Mustang often developed a cautious, defensive mindset. Aggressive tactics gave way to survival instinct. Entire Luftwaffe units began adopting retreat strategies, reducing the offensive effectiveness of Germany's air force. The Mustang forced the Germans to rethink air combat. Traditional Luftwaffe tactics relied on fast, aggressive interceptions. FW-19s and BF-19s would attack bombers in tight formations, hoping to overwhelm them with concentrated firepower. With Mustangs present, these tactics failed. The American fighters were faster at high altitudes, had longer range, and could climb out of trouble. Dogfights that once lasted minutes now lasted seconds. German pilots had to rely on ambushes or ground-controlled interception, but even these methods were often too late. German Commander General Adolf Galland later reflected, "The introduction of the Mustang forced us into a defensive position. We could no longer initiate the fight on our terms. We were reacting, not attacking. That changed everything." Even some of Germany's top aces struggled against the P-51. Take the case of Oberleutnant Erich Hartmann, the highest-scoring ace in history with 352 confirmed kills. He acknowledged in later interviews that while his skill allowed him to survive many encounters, Mustangs were a real challenge. "I could outmaneuver most planes, but the Mustang was relentless. You had to be perfect. One mistake, and it was over." The P-51's ability to combine high speed, agility, and range made traditional Luftwaffe boom and zoom tactics less effective. German pilots had to adapt, often with limited success. The Mustang leveled the playing field in a way few other planes could. It wasn't just soldiers who noticed the Mustang's dominance. Civilians in occupied Europe and Germany often observed these aerial duels. Eyewitness accounts describe sleek, fast-moving aircraft tearing through the sky. A Dutch civilian near Eindhoven recalled a raid in 1944. "I saw planes dive and climb in ways that seemed impossible. One group of fighters chased another, and the sky seemed filled with flashes of silver. Later we learned they were Mustangs. They moved too quickly for our eyes to follow." Similarly, German civilians reported bombers being protected by what they called lightning-fast escorts. They noted how Luftwaffe fighters seemed unable to penetrate the defensive formations. These civilian perspectives underline another Mustang effect. Its presence sent a clear signal of American technological and industrial power. It wasn't just a plane, it was a symbol of dominance. The Mustang's impact wasn't only tactical or psychological, it was technical. Engineers and ground crews quickly recognized how advanced the plane was compared to existing fighters. The Merlin engine gave the Mustang exceptional high-altitude performance. Its laminar flow wing reduced drag and increased speed. Fuel efficiency allowed unprecedented range. Every component, from hydraulics to control surfaces, was optimized for combat endurance. Mechanics from captured German aircraft units noted the difference starkly. A Luftwaffe engineer in the Ruhr said, "We could not match the Mustang. Every detail from engine to structure was superior. The Americans designed for long-range efficiency and resilience. Our fighters were powerful, but they burned fuel too fast and could not follow deep raids." This technological superiority amplified the Mustang's effectiveness in combat. German pilots and commanders alike recognized that their aircraft could not compete, at least not without significant redesign. By mid-1944, the Luftwaffe had extracted several lessons from encounters with Mustangs. Range is critical. Short-range fighters cannot protect bombers deep into enemy territory. Speed and agility matter at all altitudes. High-altitude performance cannot be ignored. Adapt tactics quickly. Standard interception formations were vulnerable to boom and zoom attacks. Pilot experience is crucial. Untrained replacements were slaughtered by Mustang pilots. These lessons were learned too late. By the time the Luftwaffe tried to produce better high-altitude fighters or improve pilot training, American bombing raids were already systematic, precise, and heavily defended by Mustangs. American pilots also had personal reflections that revealed the Mustang's impact. Captain John "Johnny" Smith flew P-51s with the 332nd Fighter Group in Italy. He remembered, "Flying a Mustang felt like having the wind on your side. We could reach any point the bombers needed us to cover. Enemy fighters could not shake us. It gave us confidence we had never felt before." Lieutenant James "Jim" Harper, assigned to the 4th Fighter Group in England, noted the psychological advantage. German pilots would see us coming from miles away. Sometimes they tried to fight, sometimes they turned. Either way, the Mustangs changed the tone of every mission. Fear was on their side, not ours. These first-hand accounts help explain why the Mustang became legendary among American airmen. It wasn't just a plane, it was a strategic instrument, a force multiplier that allowed smaller numbers of pilots to achieve dominance over larger formations of enemy fighters. The cumulative effect of the Mustang on the European air war was dramatic. Before its arrival, bomber formations were vulnerable once they passed the English Channel. Losses were high, and morale often suffered. By late 1944, the presence of Mustangs allowed safe, deep penetration of German airspace, reduced bomber losses from 20% to under 5%. Attrition of Luftwaffe fighter units through superior training, tactics, and technology boosted morale among Allied airmen and reinforced the perception of air superiority. Operation Market Garden and the Battle of the Bulge both benefited indirectly. While these were primarily ground operations, air support and interdiction by Mustangs kept German reinforcements and supplies under constant pressure. The Mustang's success was not accidental. It was the result of careful engineering, tactical foresight, and perfect timing. Introduced just as the Allied bombing campaign intensified, it filled a critical gap. Its combination of speed, range, and firepower allowed the Allies to maintain consistent pressure on Germany, shaping the war's outcome. For German pilots, POWs, and engineers, the Mustang became a symbol of what they could not easily overcome. It was a reminder of American ingenuity and industrial power, a force that changed the rules of the air overnight. Technology alone does not win wars, but when matched with skilled pilots, sound tactics, and effective production, it can transform entire campaigns. The P-51 Mustang illustrates this perfectly. Through German POW accounts, pilot memoirs, and civilian observations, we see a plane that was feared, respected, and revolutionary. It forced the Luftwaffe to adapt, often too late. It allowed Allied bombers to strike deep with protection. It reshaped tactics, morale, and even the psychology of aerial combat. By May 1945, the skies over Europe had quieted. The Luftwaffe was broken. The Allies had air superiority, and Germany had surrendered. The P-51 Mustang, which had reshaped the air war almost overnight, remained in service, its story far from over. For pilots, engineers, and civilians who had witnessed it, the Mustang became more than a machine. It was a symbol of technological ingenuity, courage, and the human capacity to innovate under pressure. Its influence would extend well beyond World War II, shaping aviation and inspiring generations. After Germany's surrender, many P-51s were redeployed. Some went to the Pacific Theater, where they participated in the final operations against Japan. Mustangs escorted B-29 Superfortresses over long-range missions, striking industrial targets on Kyushu and Honshu. Veteran pilot Lieutenant Robert Bob Lawson recalled, "Flying over Japan in a Mustang was surreal. We knew its reputation in Europe, but the Pacific was a different challenge. The plane handled beautifully, and the Japanese fighters quickly learned the hard way that they were outmatched." The Mustang's long-range capability proved invaluable in the Pacific. Japan's mountainous terrain and vast distances made escort missions challenging. The Mustang excelled where other fighters could not, demonstrating that its design was not just suited for Europe, but adaptable to any theater of war. After the war, the Mustang was sold or given to numerous allied nations. Countries like the United Kingdom, France, Australia, and even Israel acquired P-51s for military use. The Royal Air Force operated Mustangs in reconnaissance and fighter-bomber roles. French pilots used them during the First Indochina War. Israeli Air Force pilots in the late 1940s and early 1950s flew Mustangs against early Arab air forces. These international deployments highlight the Mustang's adaptability. Its combination of speed, range, and payload made it relevant even in conflicts long after World War II had ended. The P-51 Mustang influenced post-war aviation in multiple ways. Its laminar flow wing, designed to reduce drag, became a model for future fighters. Aerodynamic lessons learned from the Mustang informed the design of early jet fighters like the F-86 Sabre. Its emphasis on combining speed, range, and maneuverability became a template for fighter design. The concept that a single plane could dominate both low and high-altitude combat influenced military thinking for decades. Even today, aeronautical engineers study the Mustang as an example of optimized design. Its ability to combine simplicity, performance, and versatility is often cited as a benchmark in aircraft development. Many pilots who flew the Mustang during the war still recount their experiences. Their stories offer personal insight into what made the aircraft extraordinary. Captain Richard Dick Reynolds, who flew 75 missions over Europe, said, "The Mustang wasn't just a plane. It was a companion. You learned its limits, trusted its engines, and it saved countless lives. I never felt fear the way I did before flying it." Lieutenant Margaret "Maggie" Hayes, one of the few women ferry pilots in the Air Transport Auxiliary, recalled transporting Mustangs from factories to bases in England. These planes were beautiful, sleek, fast, and surprisingly forgiving. Every pilot who flew a Mustang felt a sense of pride and responsibility. Even German veterans remembered the Mustang vividly. Former Luftwaffe ace Heinrich Müller said in an interview decades later, "We lost many friends to that plane. It was unlike anything we had faced. Fast, precise, and relentless. We respected it, even as we feared it." These stories illustrate that the Mustang's impact went beyond tactics and numbers. It left a deep human impression, shaping memories, emotions, and wartime experiences. The Mustang also entered popular culture. Movies, documentaries, and books immortalized its role in the air war. Films like 12 O'Clock High featured Mustangs, and aviation enthusiasts often highlight it as the quintessential American fighter of World War II. Museums around the world preserve Mustangs today. The Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. displays a restored P-51D. Private collectors and air shows continue to showcase the Mustang's aerobatic capabilities. The plane became a symbol not only of military victory, but also of innovation and industrial prowess. Its design, performance, and legacy inspired generations of engineers, pilots, and storytellers. The P-51 Mustang provides enduring lessons in strategy and innovation. Its rapid deployment changed the course of a critical campaign. A few key strategic takeaways include technological edge as force multiplier. A single innovative design can shift battlefield dynamics. Integration with doctrine. The Mustang's success was amplified by escort tactics and coordinated missions. Psychological impact. Fear and respect generated by superior technology can alter enemy behavior. Adaptability across theaters. The Mustang's design allowed it to succeed in Europe, the Pacific, and beyond. These lessons are studied by military historians and strategists. They demonstrate that technology alone is not enough. The combination of engineering, strategy, and skilled personnel is decisive. The Mustang's design philosophy was revolutionary. North American aviation focused on simplicity, efficiency, and versatility. The laminar flow wing reduced drag. The Merlin engine provided high-altitude power. Fuel capacity allowed long-range escort missions. Pilots often noted that the Mustang was intuitive to fly. Unlike some contemporary fighters, it responded predictably to controls. This allowed pilots to focus on tactics rather than worrying about mechanical quirks. Engineers today cite the Mustang as an example of design elegance. It balanced performance, reliability, and production feasibility. Its influence can be traced through jet fighters, modern airframes, and even some civilian aircraft. Beyond statistics and engineering, the Mustang's legacy is deeply human. It shaped the experiences of airmen, both Allied and German. It influenced morale, fear, and confidence in ways that few other machines have. For American pilots, it was a guardian in the sky. For German pilots, it was a relentless adversary. For civilians and POWs, it symbolized the growing technological and industrial might of the United States. Veterans often describe emotional connections to the plane. Lieutenant Colonel Robert Bob Peterson said, "Even after all these years, I hear the Mustang's roar in my memory. It's more than metal and engines. It's a story of courage, skill, and ingenuity." These human stories complement the tactical and technical impact. They remind us that history is not only about machines and strategies, but also about the people who interacted with them. Today, hundreds of Mustangs survive in museums and private collections. Air shows often feature restored P-51s performing aerobatic maneuvers. Enthusiasts maintain the aircraft meticulously, preserving both its engineering marvel and historical significance. Events like the EAA Air Venture Oshkosh in Wisconsin feature Mustangs flying in formation, paying tribute to their wartime service. Veterans and younger generations alike witness the plane's enduring power, hearing firsthand the stories of those who flew and fought against it. In addition, documentaries and books continue to explore the Mustang story. Oral histories, archival footage, and pilot memoirs keep the plane alive in public memory. Its legend continues to grow, bridging history, technology, and personal experience. The P-51 Mustang changed the air war over Europe almost overnight. It enabled Allied air superiority, reduced bomber losses, and forced the Luftwaffe to rethink strategies. Its technical innovations influenced post-war aircraft design and inspired pilots across generations. For veterans, it was more than a machine. It was a trusted ally, a source of pride, and sometimes a stark reminder of loss. For historians, it exemplifies the power of innovation, timing, and human ingenuity. Even decades later, the Mustang's roar echoes in memory and history. It remains a symbol of courage, strategy, and the transformative power of technology in war. The Red Devil of the skies, fast, lethal, and enduring, continues to capture imaginations, ensuring that the story of the P-51 Mustang lives on.